combine them somehow. Okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry, just one
go
more
ahead,
thing.
one
I
more.
don't know that I'm necessarily qualified to write this, but talking about publicly owned utilities and like community ownership, I guess Courtney, that relates to some of what you were maybe gonna.
I'm very interested in that whole issue of public utilities versus privately owned utilities because, I'm on the board of the town of Greenberg Water Committee, and they have a much better system than what comes out of Suez, and the prices, the costs per unit of water are much less in the public utility than in Suez. So, we should get back to public utilities. But of course, if the public utilities are poorly run, that doesn't help.
Sure.
So they have to be well run.
There's a lot that's out there to sabotage them. In other words, corporate America has every interest in destroying public utilities, and they've been doing it for.
I suppose
buying
I can
water
try
rights.
to write something about that, and then we could always merge it.
Yeah, but I do
Or
think.
what about, it should be something on water rights, because fracking companies like CPV, fracked gas power plant, Nestle, all these bottling companies, they basically go and like strong arm municipalities into selling their water rights so that they could use like a bajillion gallons of water for bottling or for fracking or for whatever.
Do you know what a lot of these companies do? They just pay $100 for the permit to get the pump.
And then they just take all the water.
Yeah. No.
So like maybe do something on water, like that basically if water is a basic human right, municipalities cannot sell it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I mean, just let's get all the way.
Especially for fracking, because it's not ever coming back. Like frack water is out of the water cycle permanently. So I mean, maybe you could make the case that bottling water, people could still drink it, but like if a municipality sells water rights for a fracking company, they're going to consume that water as an end consumer, and it will never be drinkable again.
Right. Okay.
So they really definitely are selling
So
that.
Berenice, you're going to take that one on?
Sure, and
I can play with it because I was in the UN.
and
so
Courtney
I can
also.
play with that.
Sorry, one more thing. If I could do this or somebody else could, just like massive investment in transportation, public transportation infrastructure,
That's another one.
which relates to electrifying
Leo, you want to do
everything.
that one?
Yeah.
Since you've got a lot
And
of
like under the
transportation.
electrify everything,
Including high-speed rail and all of that stuff.
Okay.
And then I think that you should do the education one, but one thing I just wanted to add, which you were mentioning relating to like edible gardens, and I think like in outdoor and environmental education at all age levels, beyond just climate education, cultivating a relationship to nature is a super important.
I love that because that's exactly what I did at the one for Costo and DC 37 is I had pictures of one of our sites where we had the kids outside in the garden, and that was all tied to the STEAM education and the STEAM process.
Great, yeah.
So it was the kids actually planting, but then they also did chemistry things with the food coloring and everything. So it's really easy to embed it into the curriculum at all levels.
Use the slogan, "No child left inside."
there you go.
Where were you doing all this stuff?
Well, I wear different hats, so I did it at one of my Head Start sites in partnership with a community partner, but then also in terms of the STEAM and education, I was in Paris, so I've done different things different where, and then the toxic release inventory sites were in California. So it depends on which project you're.
But I think
that's okay. You've got a
linking
broad
those issues,
overview.
because I was really struck, because my only involvement was just being a nature mom, and then linking that to other parts of the curriculum on invasives and things like that. However, it's now they got a grant to do something pretty serious. So, taking that little start and making it into something that's a link is fully true. So I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Leah,
I mean,
we've got to hear from Leah. We have to hear from Leah.
Okay.
I have. Yeah, let's listen to Leah first.
Okay.
Right, just something on specific impact on girls.
Right, that was the.
Let's let Leah give hers and then we'll get.
I'll jump in on.
Okay, I have a few that are sort of related. One is increase ambition of the U.S. nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement in line with the 1.5 degree C carbon budget outlined by the IPCC. Also develop an appropriately stringent price on carbon and remove subsidies on fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Massive investment in public transportation. transportation.
Yeah.
I've increased research and development for renewable technologies and climate solutions. So those are all kind of like big picture federal policy.
Those are
then-
all federal level, you
Yep,
know.
develop a strategy to electrify everything, so building, heating and cooling and transportation, and fund that work for low-income communities to mitigate climate change and also improve air quality and health.
Are you gonna say something about New York City?
I thought you
In
were
that
doing
little,
it.
well, in the little underneath, you said to give the
Yes.
vignette
context.
that makes it local context.
I
So
think
I
it's
think
really
we
important
mentioned
to
New York
tell
in there.
that New York had,
Yeah, I thought we were
enacted
talking
that
about learning and knowledge
legislation.
management and sharing, and where was that?
about the
Okay.
large buildings and so on.
You wanted to do the carbon tax one, cause you totally should, I think you're super knowledgeable, so
Yeah,
I'm
let
very
her
happy,
do the
I'm very
carbon
happy to
tax.
pass that to you.
So just a question, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not planning to write like much more than
It's
a
a
line,
bullet.
right? So.
No,
Okay.
but you can write a paragraph on what New York has done in, you know, leading the effort among the network of cities, I think. Don't you think so?
Yes, but to what end, what do we wanna get out of it?
Yeah, I thought that one of the ideas was that New York is sharing what you've done as a best case example.
As a best practice,
Okay.
or a template, I think we were talking about as a model.
Well,
Yeah.
we're talking about various uses for what we do today. So the one-liners are great, but then a paragraph or two of context
Will really help,
Would-
yeah.
it might be used in other places, you know.
It might not go to this particular thing, but I think it would be useful for all of us. In fact, what was that legislation called in New York City?
So, they called the whole package the Climate Mobilization Act, but the building there
Climate
that I'm talking about
Mobilization
is Intro 1253.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. There's
Okay.
also a
You could
green
link
roofs
it
and
to that
solar.
London thing yesterday. I mean,
Yeah, you
to
could link it to the
English,
London thing, yeah.
Cause that's both subnational and transnational in some sense.
I see, are you going to the train, or are you
No.
going to your car?
I thought you were gonna throw us out at 4:30.
Well, we're gonna throw you out.
That's great, that's
I
great.
was gonna catch the 4:45, but I'm not gonna make it, but I'll catch the 5:07. Okay, Corinne,
I'm sorry, my workday begins at 3 a.m., so I'm really at the end of things. I had a piece that was relating to the health system and linking to the toxic site, but
Yeah.
that's a.
well, the health system,
I'm just
health
thinking of some of the
system
stuff
data.
that Aaron Etra has done, there's a lot of very dramatic, information at a global level as well as the local level in terms of impact on asthma, et cetera, but in terms of like malaria transmission and,
Oh yeah,
all of those
we've
things.
got
So
all the
I don't know how
kissing
to
bug
link
that bit the
to
girl in
the,
Delaware.
Your,
Chagas disease.
because there's no
carries.
point
And they
in
found
having
it
the
in
health
Delaware.
contact unless it's linked to the source. So,
Or
no,
you're
just
gonna be
just
telling us
talk
which
about the
one-liners
health
you're working
impact.
on.
I'm trying to figure out which, the one line
I
I want to work on is
understand.
health, so.
Never mind.
Health
The other one would
impact.
be gender, and I don't, I mean, gender really should be everywhere.
Yeah.
I guess my thought would be gender would be as it relates to, STEAM education and women's involved, but more than STEAM education, which is very grassroots and awareness, the energy industry sector, all of those sectors are not, there's not a lot of women, and that's what STEAM is supposed to fix, but we're talking about right now in terms of representing.
Yeah, but I think
So
you ought to mention somehow too, that women are in the forefront of all of these movements. I mean, if you look at.
That's a good
Right.
point,
It's
yeah.
largely because corporations are dominated by men,
And
that
women are
basically
trying to fight
the
back,
voice,
yeah.
Right.
the voice of outrage is universal. I mean, I'm just in America, certainly not in the.
Yeah, but I'm just not sure how we would make that a recommendation for the UPR to the United States government.
Well,
we know
recognition of
one of
women's
the
leadership.
Impacts of
Okay, I'll
pollution
work on it.
is low birth weight, and that's that's maternal
health
health
impacts,
and
Right,
health
but it's
impacts.
Yeah.
No, but
I'll
talk
figure
about.
out something that's a health on women, but I can't do it in the next 3 days, I'm sorry, I already told you.
Corinne, just think about the health impacts on women of climate change, and that's low birth weight, that's, we have one of the highest,
I know.
Yeah,
Cancer.
very triple.
No, I know.
mortality
I-
rates of the.
And the organizations reflect it, the women's out front, the
No,
women
I know
out
that, I
front.
did a whole lecture on this for you, New York
Yeah,
Times.
right
I'll
there.
just pull out my lecture and
Okay.
do it.
Peg, are you gonna add anything, or you're just taking notes, you're taking notes? Okay, I wanna do a one on promoting reduction of combined sewer outflows, released into rivers and waterways by capturing stormwater in rain gardens, cisterns, etc., and including it in the curriculum. And then I wanted to do one on aggregation and distribution of data, unless somebody else is doing that, related to climate change and its impact on human well-being.
Or even just don't destroy our data.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, you haven't gone yet.
No,
There,
I
you're
did.
gone.
He
Okay.
did, he went, but
I
he's-
was just gonna say, because I think Tim brought up a really good point, that we need to look at the underlying paradigms that our legislation and such are coming from. And the UN has the Declaration on the Rights of Mother, I think it's called the Declaration on the Rights of Mother Nature, which is a
it's
It's Steve
yeah.
Rockefeller's piece.
Mother
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah.
Mother Earth, that's right, and it's
Mother Earth
really
Charter.
like
Yeah.
it's really beautiful, and it talks about like the inherent rights that ecosystems and the people who live with them have, and I think something as simple as like recognize and honor the Declaration on the Rights of Mother, because obviously we live in a system that commodifies nature and also commodifies people, and I'm like trying to change that underlying perspective
Well,
is really
climate
important.
justice, I mean, environmental justice, could we talk about
Definitely, but
recognizing?
I think
It's
that's
problematic.
that's more than
Yeah.
environmental justice,
It
but
is, because justice is a human-based term.
Yeah.
yeah.
Humans have no rights to an ecosystem. That's just as straightforward as it is. No organism has rights in an ecosystem.
But
There are
It's in the Ecuador
Yeah.
Constitution.
Rights language
true.
makes no sense in functioning ecosystems.
that's
Because,
true.
what's the right of
Of the earth?
well, of a carnivore, right? What's the right of an herbivore, right? We eat plants. Do plants have rights against herbivores?
Right.
Do carnivores have rights? We live in a trophically organized system where energy flows through it.
That's-
Rights language makes no sense. That's the implication of a human thing on top of a natural system.
Okay.
Right.
So we need, in some
I'd like to
sense, to
add on.
realize we're recontextualizing all of this
Sorry,
in a
Tim.
natural ecosystem.
I'd like to add a codicil, and that is if you come up with an idea about something that we didn't talk about today, but
Put
you're
it down.
passionate about it, include it.
Great.
And then,
And
and
what's
what,
our-
okay,
what is our
okay, range? We have to hear from Ginger. Go ahead, Ginger. Were you gonna add
Well,
something?
right now, I'd like to thank all of you so much. You're a wonderful group. You're the right group to do this. And thank you to Tim Weisel for your initial presentation, which takes it in a different direction. And I look forward to receiving all the inputs. And David and I will start to put things together, both for the input to UNA-USA, which will be more modest, and then to a standalone.
Okay,
And if you want to also add something about how your organization can benefit from this and can move forward with this, that's really important to us. And we
Okay,
can use that in different
okay,
ways.
so, and you're gonna send it all out to all of us before it, gets finalized?
Yep. Well, not just when it's final, when the input is assembled, and then, later.
When do you want the input? What's our
What's the
timeframe?
deadline?
If you could do it in a week, that would be wonderful. If you beg me for an extension, that's okay.
I think we should be able to
also
do it
through
faster,
Ryan.
because we've already written most of it down. I think some of us have already written it down, so it won't take us too long.
But the sooner the better, and David says write it while it's hot.
Write it while it's hot.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Ginger.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Thanks for joining.
Tim.
It was awesome